In the city of Rajgarh, O warrior king, during the reign of the mighty Roop Sen, there was a man named Rajeshwar, who was a very famous Rajput warrior. By his valor and conduct, he had risen from the lowest ranks of the army to lead it as its captain. Even though he reached the top of the ranks, he did not put a stop to all improvements like other chiefs who rejoiced to rest. On the contrary, he became such a reformer that to some extent he remodeled the art of war. Instead of attending to rules and regulations drawn up in their studies by Pandits and Brahmins, he consulted chiefly to his own experience and judgment. He threw aside the systematic plans of campaigns laid down in the Shastras and he acted upon the spur of the moment. He displayed a skill in the choice of ground, in the use of light troops, and in securing his own supplies whilst he cut off those of the enemy, which Kartikeya himself, the god of war, might have envied. Finding that the bows of his troops were clumsy and slow to use, he had them all changed. He also gave his attention to the sword handles, which cramped the men's grasp, but which, having been used for 1800 years, were considered perfect weapons. And having organized a special corps of warriors using fire arrows, he soon brought it to such perfection that by using it against the elephants of his enemies, he won many wars. One instance of his superior judgment I am about to quote to thee, O Vikram, after which I return to my tale. For thou art truly a warrior king, very likely to imitate the innovations of the great general Rajeshwar. He found his master's enemies recruited from northern Hindustan and officered by Kshatriya warriors who grew great only because they grew old and fat. Thus, the energy and talent of the younger men were wasted in troubles and disorders, whilst the seniors were often so ancient that they could not mount their chargers unaided, nor, once they mounted, could they see anything but a dozen yards away from them. But they had served in a certain obsolete campaign, and until Rajeshwar gave them pensions and dismissals, they claimed a right to take first part in all campaigns, present and future. The commander-in-chief refused to use any captain who could not stand steady on his legs or endure the sun for a whole day. When a soldier distinguished himself in action, he raised him to the powers and privileges of the warrior caste. And whereas it had been the habit to lavish circles and bars of silver and other metals upon all those who had joined in war, whether they had sat behind a heap of sand or had been foremost to attack the foe, he broke through the perennial custom and he rendered the honor valuable by conferring it only upon the deserving. I need hardly say that, in any inordinately short space of time, his army beat every king and general that opposed it. One day, the great commander-in-chief was seated in a certain room near the threshold of his gate, when the voices of a number of people outside were heard. Rajeshwar asked, "Who is at the door, and what is the meaning of the noise I hear?" The porter replied, "It is a fine thing your honor has asked. Many persons coming sitting at the door of the rich for the purpose of obtaining a livelihood and wealth. When they meet together, they talk of various things. It is these very people who are now making this noise." Rajeshwar, on hearing this, remained silent. In the meantime, a traveller, a Rajput, Birbal by name, hoping to obtain employment, came from the southern quarter of the palace to meet the chief. The porter, having listened to his story, made the circumstance known to his master, saying, "O chief, an armed man has arrived here, hoping to get an employment, and is standing at the door. If I receive a command, he shall be brought into your honor's presence." "Bring him in," cried the commander in chief. The porter brought him in, and Rajeshwar inquired, "O Rajput, who and what are you?" Birbal then told that he was a person who was skilled with the use of weapons, and that his name had gone forth to the utmost ends of the entire India. Now, when the chief listened to Birbal tell things about himself, he was only used to that kind of self introduction, and he was so tired of it, and that he wanted to shame the man by showing him that he had not the least knowledge of weapons, and therefore he drew his blade out to perform some kind of feat. But Birbal knew about this. He guessed what kind of thoughts were hovering over the chief's mind, and he drew his sword at once. He put forth his left hand, extending the forefinger upward, waved his blade like the arm of a demon round his head, and with a dexterous stroke he shaved off a bit of nail that it fell to the ground and didn't cause one drop of blood to drop from his finger. Upon seeing that, Rajeshwar was awestruck, and he shouted, saying, "Live forever." And then he said to the new recruit, that was Birbal, and he asked him a few questions concerning the art of war, or rather concerning his peculiar views of it. To all of which Birbal answered very patiently, and hence with each of his answer, anybody who heard him would have been convinced that he was a no common sworder. Now, Rajeshwar was completely convinced, and he wanted to take Birbal to the king